Hello and welcome to another edition of Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week on the program, your questions and comments from last week's edition of the program. We had 3 guests from the city of Arlington in Texas seeking the Nigerian federal government's attention to establish a front office to serve Nigerians in mid-cities in the U.S. who wish to renew their Nigerian passports and assistance with other diaspora matters. On Saturday, March 9th, the Ministry of Interior on its X account announced the launch of an online portal for Nigerians in the diaspora to renew their passports from the comfort of their homes. We'll talk some more about this later. Friday was the International Women's Day, and where better to pivot celebrations than from Finland, the first country in the world to extend the right to vote and stand for elections to all women and men in 1906. It's also the first country in the world to pioneer gender equality. We'll listen to the experience of the country's first female president, Tarja Carina Halonen. You'd wonder why such a pioneering nation only elected its first female president in 2000. Keeping with the theme for this year's International Women's Day, investing in women accelerate progress, we'll hear from one woman who invested in herself and her future by moving to Finland, where she says life is so much better for her. And get this, she is American. That's Diplomatic Channel in a wrap. A quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles, and we'll be right back.
Nigeria's Foreign Minister Yusuf Toga has reiterated the country's commitment to strengthening diplomatic and bilateral relations with Russia. He made the comment during a working visit to the Russian Federation and his meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Mr. Toga appreciated Russia's support and solidarity, disclosing that Nigeria is exploring the possibility of joining BRICS and seeking to become a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council as part of efforts to ensure that Nigeria and Africa are represented at the highest levels of global decision-making. Presidential candidates have kicked off their election campaign in Senegal following weeks of violent protests across the country after the vote was delayed. The 19 approved candidates vying for the top jobs now have a shorter period to rally supporters ahead of the March 24 election, expected to be the most tightly contested race since Senegal gained independence more than 6 decades ago. The former mayor of Dakar, Khalifa Sall, who is running for the 4th time, organized a marching caravan through the streets of the capital to begin his campaign. The frontrunners would likely be former Prime Minister Amadou Ba as the ruling party's choice, and in prison Bassirou Diomaye Faye, a lesser-known candidate who gained popularity as the chief of the dissolved PASTEF party. The U.S. Army says one of its military ships is sailing towards the Middle East, carrying equipment to build a temporary pier off the coast of Gaza. The General Frank S. Besson, a support ship, set sail from a military base in the state of Virginia on Saturday, less than 36 hours after U.S. President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. would build a floating harbor to help get aid into Gaza by sea. The Pentagon says it could take up to 60 days to build the pier with the help of 1,000 troops, none of whom would go ashore.
Now, in case you missed it, you can watch on youtube.com/channelsweb. Just check the playlist for Diplomatic Channel. They cited the inconvenience of traveling many miles to either the embassy in Washington, D.C. or the consulates in Atlanta or New York. An expensive feat for most, and one that would affect their jobs and everyday life. They compared the Nigerian experience with that of the United States, where passport renewal is done at the post office and the document received in a matter of days or a couple of weeks. They also cited calls for intervention from the Nigerian government, which have apparently gone unnoticed to them, even using representatives to speak to the Nigerian government on their behalf to no avail. A lot of you had a lot of reactions to that edition. I'll just read a few that follow the video on YouTube. Elliot number 2345 says, the most troubling for me is the Nigerian government delegating a foreign company to process the application for a Nigerian passport. You wait for so long for the application to be processed, then you get to consulate New York City and you encounter another nightmare. You meet most Nigerian officials, probably clerical officials in Nigeria. They're so unprofessional, arrogant and rude. Eventually, I had to give up. At Zin So Maro says, this is 3 years I applied for passport in my own embassy, paid $150. The passport has not been out. We have another reaction. Ngozi Charles Uzokwu 4625 says, the Minister of Interior promised e-passport renewal and we were happy hearing that development. Please let him not fail on his promise. At Ben Moonraker says, my question is, why Chicago and Houston? Have you considered that people like us are going through in West Coast? I guess it means what people like us are going through in the West Coast. The embassy representatives came to Phoenix in May 2022, and I finally got my passport in September of 2023. User RB9I4DJ5Y says, frankly, the ways and manners Nigerians here in the US go through is very painful, frustrating and cumbersome. To process a simple passport renewal by having to travel to these 3 consulate stations is a complete embarrassment. To us here, it is an extension of dysfunction associated with the dispensation of basic services by Nigerian institutions. It seems the Ministry of Interior may have kept its promise following this message on its X account. It says, exciting news for Nigerians abroad. Now you can apply for your passport right from the comfort of your home or office. No more long queues or hassle. Apply online today and get your passport hassle-free. Visit passportintl.immigration.gov.ng for more information. Now, when you click on the link, it takes you to the passport page of the Nigeria Immigration Service, where you can pick whatever service you wish to perform. It eliminates the interventions of a middleman, as I said earlier, and you can decide the length of validity of your passport, whether 5 years or 10 years. But you must be a citizen of Nigeria. You must have your national identification number. You must have your passport photographs that meet ICAO standards, so that the photograph should be 2 by 2 inches. You must have adequate brightness and contrast, and the skin tone should be natural. You should also have your birth certificate and local government certificate of indigenship before proceeding to the portal for registration. Bear in mind, if you are in the diaspora, the 5-year passport costs $142, while the 10-year validity passport costs $242. I encourage Nigerians in the diaspora to try processing their passports using the new portal and tell us their experience. And now to celebrating women. She was president of the world's pioneer in gender equality, but she only attained the position in 2000. The now 80-year-old former politician is incidentally Finland's only president. On March 1st, 2000, the day of her inauguration as president, a new constitution for Finland went into effect that reduced the powers of the president and emphasized the position of parliament as the strongest body in the government. The president, however, retained considerable powers in foreign policy, the area of Halonen's greatest strength. As president, she continued Finland's pro-European Union policies, but she opposed the idea of Finnish membership in NATO. A couple of months back, I and a few other international journalists had the pleasure of being hosted by Tarja Halonen, Finland's first female president, in a forum in Helsinki. She spoke about why it took Finland so long to elect its first female president, despite having extended the right to vote and stand for elections back in 1906. We also have her advice for living a long and happy life.
The younger generation, like my daughter and her generation, said, why it took so long time? It was exactly this question. We were the first nation in the world to give the full political rights, both the candidates and the voting. Why it took so long time? And I said that that's a very interesting issue because, I have double response on that. First, of course, it has taken a longer time. Helvi Sipilä, who was an Under Secretary of the United Nations, was the first to candidate. And that was when I was a child, and I remember when my father said that, Helvi Sipilä is trying to candidate to become president. And she's a woman. And then he kept the silence for a while, and then said, yeah, why not? It's not any kind of difficulties with the constitution. Of course, she can try. And then some, not too many tried. I think that not after Helvi, nobody. And then when my predecessor, Martti Ahtisaari, who was already at that time the famous international diplomat, when he was candidating outside of the traditional political parties to become a president. So it also some kind of surprise. Elisabeth Rehn from the Swedish People's Party, from the minority party, small party. We have only 5% Swedish-speaking people. My father was also one of those. And so she has been a defense minister, the first lady in our history. And then she should tell it by herself, she's still alive, that how it went in such a way that she was candidating. I think that they tried this idea that when she has been already one of those breaking the glass ceiling. And then we have the French system, so that we have first all the candidates and then the second round, two best ones. And then she became to the second round, and she was much better than what the people expected, although what the journalists expected beforehand. And then I think that the situation at Ahtisaari was also outside of the political, traditional political circles, made this election a bit different. And it was also the first, it was really the first campaign directed by the people. We had the direct vote, so that you don't need somebody to deliver your opinion. And then it was so big issue also for my own political party, Social Democratic Party, that even some of the very well-known Social Democrats started to support Elisabeth Rehn, because they thought that it was more important to support the women. The gender issue was more important for them than the ideological background, because president anyway is a person who is the institute of the one person. So he or she has to keep somewhere between the different political ideas. And then Elizabeth, in the way, opened the door already for the possibility. And then when I was candidating in 2000, so we had, I think, 6 or 7 female candidates and one stronger man, Esquaho, who was our former prime minister, very well known. And then when I was starting my campaign, so I was the foreign minister of this country, and because we have the first ever had European Union presidency, so both the President Ahtisaari and the Prime Minister Lipponen said, "You don't disturb then our EU presidency." And then that was in the autumn '99. And when the last summit was in the middle of December, then I could start with my campaign, and elections were already in January. So pretty same situation what Jutta Urpilainen now has. The commission said that you cannot go earlier. And it worked. The most of the mornings I'm very optimistic. Sometimes in the evenings I had difficulties to say to myself that relax, that the world doesn't change in a minute. Then I try to remember my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother was already born in 1860. And in that time, when she said that it's not the business of the church or the state to tell that with whom I should share my bread or my bed, I said that's not. Okay, of course, her life was much more difficult in that, because the feminism has not yet started, and because of her behavior, so also my mother's childhood was not very bright, or not very sunny. But then I used to live in the family where I always said that don't complain, don't complain. The life can be sometimes very hard. And so sometimes it's good in all countries to remember that how much we have already achieved. With us, with you, with the previous generation. I'm already about that age of your parents, perhaps. And so I think that then we see also that how much we have reached, because we need also the feeling of the victory. We feel it that, yeah, we have a lot of troubles, but we have achieved terribly much, so that your grandmother's a grandhusband, that says my dear child, that don't make too much such kind of the dreams. And so this perhaps helps to see it, because also when we are speaking about the sustainable development, we have to say that it's not that everything happens at the one moment, but if we don't start now it effectively, so it will be much more difficult.
This year's theme for the International Women's Day is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. It focuses on achieving gender equality and women's well-being in all aspects of life, which is more crucial than ever if we want to create prosperous economies and a healthy planet. That's why we're talking about Finland today, the first country in the world to extend the right to vote and stand for elections to all women and men in 1906. Finland was also the first country to elect women to parliament. 19 were elected to the 200-seat parliament in 1907. The success of Finland as a country is to a great extent linked with improvements in the status of women and gender equality. Already in 1917, a number of Finnish women were given 4 weeks of maternity leave. Nowadays, the parental leave is almost a year, and is also used increasingly by the fathers. Perhaps that's the reason Kelly Kyodora, an American, considered when she made the decision to move to Finland. I caught up with a transformation coach and global communications specialist in Tampere, Finland.
Hi, I'm Kelly Kyodora.
And what do you do?
Professionally, I am in global communications working at Nokia.
Okay. How long have you been in Finland?
I have been in Finland almost 9 years now.
And why did you come to Finland?
Yes, this is the biggest question that I get asked all the time. Why Finland? So I came here in 2015 with my partner at the time. It was for a job. And I moved to my current city because of studies. So after studies, I realized that Finland is the place for me. I have really found a second home here, and I have a child. He's 11 years old, and he really loves Finland as well. What we have found is that it really fits our lifestyle. We like the calm of this nation, and the nature is beautiful, and it's also very safe for children to grow up here. So this is the reason why Finland, because it fits us.
So, a lot of people are moving to the US, especially from Africa, and they think that, life in the US would solve all of their problems. I mean, they would solve all of their economic problems. Mm-hmm. What do you say to people like that? I mean, you have lived in the US all your life. You were born there, you were raised there, but you had to move.
It is quite funny, right? So my message for those who want to move to the US is go for it. Because, when you migrate to a new country, new culture, you really learn a lot about yourself as a person, as a professional. It is true that the US has a lot of vast opportunities. This is the reason why, this American dream still lives in a lot of people globally today, because it is possible to fulfill your dreams and also to support your families. The economic situation could possibly improve. You never know until you try. So the reason why I moved away, it wasn't because I wanted to get away from that. It was obviously because for family reasons, but I never would have found, parts of myself if I had stayed in the US. So wherever you choose to go, I think that it's a great opportunity for you to explore, and not just professional wise, but also personal wise.
Did you experience any challenges coming to Finland?
Absolutely. With any, change comes challenges, right? But what matters is how you approach them. So some challenges that I faced coming to Finland from the US is certainly the language barrier and also the culture barrier. The language, obviously, Finnish is not the easiest language to learn. I think it's like one of the top 6 hardest languages of the world to learn, but it doesn't make it impossible. So I'm still learning Finnish, and it's very fun. It's a great way to step out of your comfort zone. And speaking of stepping out of your comfort zone, I think I do that daily living in a country where Finns are known to be like introverts, a little bit more, not cold. I don't find them cold at all. It's like it takes time for them to warm up. And a lot of the times I actually have a lot of Finnish friends because I had to be the first to take the initiative. They're not going to be the ones that come up to you and say hello, for example. So I think that was one of my biggest things, because in the US it's very, approachable and friendly. You say hello to strangers on the street. If you say hello to a stranger in the street here, they will give you a weird look. So don't do that in Finland. But overall, I think the challenges has made me a stronger person, stronger personally and professionally, and it has taught me resilience. And what I've learned here in Finland is, when you push yourself, you don't have to just survive. You can actually thrive.
I think that should be a message for every immigrant. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you do push yourself. But how did you cope with the weather, though? I mean, the winters are not just long, but dark.
You're absolutely right. You adapt, just like anybody. When you go into a different climate or culture, you just learn to adapt. I come from North Carolina, which is a very, not so cold environment. So it was a big change. I came into Finland in February, which is the month where it gets the most snow, where it's the coldest of the year, usually. And it was just beautiful. I had never seen that much snow. I remember stepping out of the taxi, going into our new place, and just like standing there next to the taxi, not hearing a sound. I had never heard that before. It was just like music to my ears in a way. It was an insane feeling. But to answer your question, so yes, the winters are long and cold. Starting around October is when it starts to get dark. And when I mean dark, like the sun rises 8 or 9, and then it sets around 2 or 3. So this lasts between, I would say, November to March. So it's very dark and cold. But what I've learned is that there's actually the saying in Finnish where it's not about, how does it go? I'm going to butcher it. It's not about the weather, it's about what you put on. So you just put on extra clothes and you're fine. The coldest I've ever experienced was minus 30 Celsius. So, and I survived. You just put on extra clothes. There's a lot of gear that you can put on, like outdoor pants, and it's really funny. This makes me think of my son when we first arrived. He was 2 years old, and they actually have, like, I call them Eskimo suits, for children, and they look like little snowmen, and they're so adorable. But it really keeps you warm, and that also exists for adults. So we have the proper means to keep warm.
So you came into this country, then you had a partner. Now you're raising your son alone.
Yes.
Have there been any challenges? What has that been like for you?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, when you're in a new country as a single mother or single parent, it's very difficult, especially if you're a working parent. Sometimes you have to work longer hours, sometimes you have to have work travel, and the way that I've kind of navigated through this is by making other parent friends. So, if I have an event, a conference to attend, and I need a couple of days to go to that, I give my son to my friends who, take care of them while I'm gone. And in return, I do the same. Recently, like last night, I had his friends over because their mother was away abroad for a conference. So, we just take turns, help each other out. And this is what it's about, is finding your community in a new country, and just, doing what it takes to help others, because they will usually return that favor.
Do you miss anything about America?
Regarding,
I don't know, anything.
okay.
Maybe the life you had before, probably your friends in the States, the food perhaps.
Okay. So when people ask me, what do you miss about the States? I say nothing but my family and friends, because I can find everything else here. But family and friends, that's what I miss the most. So I do get homesick sometimes. Like I was homesick around Thanksgiving because I hadn't been home for Thanksgiving in a couple of years, and you start to realize, like those traditions that you had, they mean a lot, especially when you haven't had it in a while. So I do miss my family and friends very much in the States. By the way, I'm the only one from my family that is here. I'm the black sheep, so I don't have any family members here. All of my family members are in the States.
But you talk to them often on the phone?
I do. Thank goodness for technology. I do talk to them every week, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've come to the end of the program this week. I'm glad you could join us. Please keep your questions and comments coming. You can reach out using any of the social media addresses showing on your screen. Also, check out recent editions of the program on youtube.com/channelsweb. Go to the playlist to launch any of the editions that you're interested in. I'm Amarachi Ubadi. I'll see you next time.